Tonight's news edition. Yemen's newly appointed vice president expresses hope that a Saudi-led invasion to restore unity in Yemen will be averted. The Russian president says the country's economy could return to growth in less than 2 years, despite Western sanctions. And here at home, the Prime Minister stresses transport as a top agenda priority and says projects underway will have a direct impact on other economic sectors. Good evening and very warm welcome to the news. Yemen's newly appointed Vice President Khalid said he hopes to avert a Saudi-led invasion to restore unity to the country. Arab military exercises planned for Saudi Arabia have raised speculation that Riyadh is considering land operations in Yemen after 3 weeks of strikes against Houthi rebels who are now in control of most of the country. President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi this week named Bahah as his deputy in an attempt to widen support for his government now exiled to Saudi Arabia. Speaking in the Saudi capital Riyadh at his first news conference since taking the post, Bahah said, and I quote, "We are still hoping that there is no ground campaign announced with the air campaign."
We are still hoping that there is no ground campaign will be along with the air campaign. This is what we are hoping. And we are hoping that our people in Yemen will understand, and the casualties that happened already here now, that will not be, it will be more if it happened on the ground. So I will let that one for the operation or the military operations to make that decision. But as I said, we are still hoping that nothing will happen, and we are not expanding the war, but we are trying to stop the war, and that's what we are looking for.
The Iranian-backed Houthi rebels seized the Yemeni capital Sana'a in September and then advanced towards the southern port city of Aden. Establishing the government's legitimacy is central to the Saudi-led campaign to drive back the Houthis and prevent Iran from gaining influence. Heavy fighting broke out in and around the central Yemen city of Taiz, pitting a pro-government army brigade and tribesmen against the Houthis and army units allied to them. The combat opens up a new front for the Houthis, who have been fighting battles with militiamen across southern Yemen. In a further sign of political breakdown, United Nations envoy to Yemen, Jamal bin Umar, announced his resignation. Meanwhile, Saudi-led airstrikes continue to target Houthi rebels across Yemen. Military spokesman of Operations Decisive Storm, Brigadier General Ahmed Al-Asiri, said Yemen's Houthi rebels and allied forces of former President Ali Abdullah Saleh had sought to hijack the Yemeni state by force. He said the Houthis had made gains due to Saleh forces' backing, but this alliance had now been shaken as commanders had defected and rejoined the legitimate government forces. The spokesman also accused the Houthis of putting civilians in harm's way as the Saudi-led campaign goes on.
I want to confirm again that one of our important criteria in the operation is the collateral damage. You know that those militias had a very known behavior is to be among the civilian, to use the civilian as a hostage to protect themselves. We are taking care about all our operations to make sure that there is no casualties among civilian. The Yemeni government will take what is necessary to investigate those allegations to make sure that it will be clear for the Yemeni population first before the international opinion. Let me make sure that those kind of allegation we assured from the day one that the Houthis has the manner to bombard the houses.
US-led coalition forces launched more than 20 airstrikes against Daesh militants in Iraq and Syria. Iraqi forces, meanwhile, fought Daesh militants in the city of Ramadi in their offensive to recapture the western Anbar province. The government troops said they liberated a main international highway in the region and were advancing towards the BG refinery. But local sources said Daesh fighters gained some ground overrunning a village near Ramadi, the capital of Anbar. Hundreds of families were fleeing Abu Ghanim after security forces came under attack from the militants overnight and withdrew from the area around 5 kilometers northeast of Ramadi. Syrian forces carried out aerial strikes against rebels in various cities across the country. In the northern city of Idlib, a child was pulled from the rubble of her home after what was said to be a government airstrike. A group monitoring the Syrian war reported heavy airstrikes in Idlib, which was seized last month from government control by insurgent groups, including the Al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front. Thick smoke also rose above several buildings in eastern Ghouta, a suburb of the capital Damascus, after shelling by rebel forces. Rebels also fired mortar shells on government targets in Aleppo, the largest city in Syria. Rebel groups in and around the city have repelled repeated attempts by the Syrian army and militia fighting with it to cut supply lines from Turkey to the rebels. Israeli police said a Palestinian whose car struck people at a Jerusalem bus stop killed an Israeli and appeared to have driven into them deliberately. Police said earlier it was unclear whether last night's accident was an attack or a traffic accident. The car's driver, a 37-year-old Palestinian from occupied East Jerusalem, was treated in hospital for light injuries and then taken for questioning. Police said 2 Israelis were struck by the vehicle and one of them died later in hospital. The other, a woman, was badly injured. The attack took place on the opposite side of the same intersection in Jerusalem, where last year a car slammed into commuters waiting at a tram stop, killing 3 people. An Egyptian soldier was killed and 3 others wounded when a roadside bomb hit an armored vehicle in northern Sinai. Security sources said the bomb was planted on a road south of Sheikh Zayed town. Troops and militants exchanged fire in the area before the blast. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. In other news now, the European Union's top foreign political official said that she's confident a preliminary deal on Iran's nuclear program will lead to a final deal by the end of June. Federica Mogherini was responding to a question about whether a move by Russia to lift a ban on sales of weapons to Iran had the potential to derail the preliminary deal reached by Iran and world powers earlier this month. The European Union today announced that world powers will hold talks on April the 22nd and the 23rd with Iran in Vienna as part of efforts to reach a historical deal. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said he's confident President Barack Obama will be able to get Congress to approve a nuclear deal with Tehran. The U.S. President has acknowledged lawmakers would have the power to review an accord with Iran. Kerry made his remarks after arriving in Germany for a group of 7 foreign ministers meeting in the northern city of Lübeck.
Yesterday, there was a compromise reached in Washington regarding congressional input. We are confident about our ability for the President to negotiate an agreement and to do so with the ability to make the world safer. And again, every partner here has been absolutely critical to our ability to be able to get where we are today.
Russian President Vladimir Putin denied that Moscow is providing troops in support for pro-Russian rebels fighting in eastern Ukraine. He said in his annual televised call-in with the nation that Russian military forces were not in Ukraine. The Russian president also said Iran's drive to find a solution in talks over its nuclear program spurred his decision to renew a contract to deliver S-300 missile defense systems to Tehran. Putin also sought to assure Russians that the country's economy could return to growth in less than 2 years, despite Western sanctions, which he said were intended to contain Russia. Here's more. In our local news, Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said the transport sector is an economic lifeline and will be an agenda priority of his government this year. At a meeting with Transport Minister Alina Shabib and other ministry officials, Mansour stressed on the importance of projects carried out by the Transport Ministry due to their impact on all economic sectors. The Prime Minister emphasized that public transport ventures should take a fast track in order to promote services provided to citizens and ease traffic jams across the country. Mansour pointed to the economic integration between Jordan and regional Arab states once a railway linkage is up and running. The Prime Minister tasked the Transport Ministry to update the studies done earlier about the feasibility of a land port in Ma'an Governorate to serve transit trips for neighbouring countries. 41 people have drowned in the Mediterranean trying to reach Italy by boat from Libya. 4 survivors said when they arrived at the Sicilian port of Trapani. They were originally from sub-Saharan Africa and had left the city of Tripoli in Libya on Saturday. It followed an incident on Monday which left more than 350 migrants presumed dead. Monday's incident would bring the total number of dead on migrant boats in the Mediterranean to approximately 900 since January, as migrant numbers have surged in response to the breakdown of order in Libya. The European Commission warned that the issue of migrants in the Mediterranean is set to worsen as summer approaches. EU Commission spokesperson Natasha Berthaud told reporters the Commission understood the scale of the issue.
The European Commission cannot alone do it all. Yes, we are putting all our energy into developing a new comprehensive approach on managing migration, which, as we've said many times, we will be coming forward with in May, moved up from July. But no, we do not have a silver bullet or any kind of panacea that is going to make the situation go away like that, and no amount of finger pointing is going to change that.
Okay, let's take you to South Africa, where a local skydiver was given the fright of his life when his parachute malfunctioned in midair and he was blown off course. Luke Godfrey's helmet camera fell off in the process and captured a 1,000-meter plunge to the ground, which could have potentially been his fate. Godfrey said it was a routine jump, which he was conducting with 2 other experienced skydivers. The helmet camera landed undamaged in a rugby field and was then picked up by a group of people. The world's highest-paid model, Gisele Bündchen, walked her runway finale at the Sao Paulo Fashion Week after almost a decade in the fashion spotlight. Bündchen stepped out for the last time in a juxtaposition of fine white lace and leather gladiator boots as part of Colchi's Spring-Summer 2016 collection. The new collection appropriately reflected her trademark balance of grace and power on the runway. In 2009, she was designated a Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations Environment Programme. The world's first snowboarding quadruple cork has finally been performed thanks to Billy Morgan, who was competing in Livigno, Italy. Morgan's jump involved 4 off-axis flips and 5 full rotations. The jump was 1 full flip and half a rotation more than the previous record landed by Yuki Cardano at the US Open slopestyle event in March. It took the 26-year-old 40 hours of preparation. Former world #1 Roger Federer was knocked out of the Monte Carlo Masters' 3rd round. He was beaten 6-4, 7-6 by local favourite Gael Monfils on a bad day for the Swiss. Federer said he would now return to Switzerland to prepare for more clay court action in Istanbul and Madrid. It was also a bad day for another Swiss. Defending champion Stanislas Wawrinka put up only token resistance as his game fell apart in a 6-1, 6-2 rout at the hands of Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov on court center. Wawrinka also looked like he needed some practice. After the third, the Seid hit 41 unforced errors as he went down in less than an hour. Now, a quick look at the weather forecast. Chilly in most areas tonight with northwesterly brisk to light winds. Tomorrow, fair weather is forecast for much of the hilly areas and warm in the Jordan Valley. Pleasantly warm in the Dead Sea area with a high of 27 degrees. There will be a chance, though, for scattered showers in some areas across the country. The port of Aqaba should enjoy warm weather with calm seas. Next, the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To close, our top stories once again. Yemen's newly appointed vice president expresses hope that a Saudi-led invasion to restore unity in Yemen will be averted. The Russian president says the country's economy could return to growth in less than 2 years, despite Western sanctions. And here at home, the Prime Minister stresses transport as a top agenda priority and says projects underway will have a direct impact on other economic sectors. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. My name is Rad Lubtush. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you tomorrow.